Uniquely.
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 Issaquah.
Welcome to Uniquely Issaquah. Today, I'm fortunate enough to have our fire chief with us, Chief Ben Lane. Welcome.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. We are just gonna, share our coffees and share a few stories. I really want the community to get to know our new chief. So tell us a little bit about your background and your experience.
Well, thank you. My path here, I've been in Issaquah working here for my entire career as part of what was then Fire District 10, is now Eastside Fire and Rescue, which was formed in 1999. So for me, how I found my way to this table with, in the background here, it says the fire chief. To me, I still every day wake up and I can't really believe that. I joined the fire service in 1991 as a volunteer in my senior year in high school, and I was a resident of the Woodinville community. And from there, they took me in and provided me the baseline training, and I was hired as a career firefighter by District 10 in 1994. And as I mentioned later on, it became Eastside Fire and Rescue in 99. And so then to be here today as the fire chief of Eastside Fire and Rescue, I really feel like my career has come completely full circle. And as you know, Eastside provides through contract for services with the city of Woodinville and the Woodinville community. So to be back there as a resident and the fire chief, it's a really special place for me. I have absolutely embraced every single step along the way in my path to becoming the fire chief. I tell people, if I could go back and redo things in my career, one thing, my piece of advice would be, just don't be so afraid to fail. Step through doors of opportunity. And I really think that kind of encapsulates my career of, this door of opportunity really challenges or frightens me a little bit. I begin to become comfortable with that, knowing that, that's probably a door I should step through. So that's part of the reason why I'm sitting here today.
It's such a great message. Thank you for sharing that, because even beyond what you do, that is just good for youth to hear as well. Don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
How long have you been the fire chief, and what are some of your goals that you're bringing to the organization?
So I started as the fire chief this last November of 2022. And one of my goals, well, first, I think that the big thing for the organization, for Eastside Fire and Rescue as a whole, is to start to just reunite the organization. We're no different than any other business or agency. We've traveled a really rough path over the past few years, and so it's just finding some real common ground. So to me, I think that, if I were to say, oh, you know what, that's in my wheelhouse. I love to be relational, be connected. I was telling Tim earlier that, I have 2 doors to my office, and I encourage people to step through either one of those. I'm challenged in battling against tradition. Having started in the organization as a firefighter, I have so many fond memories and relationships I've built along the way, and my position has changed. And so with the title of fire chief, it comes with a challenge of there's this historical organizational separation. I'm trying to battle against that. I still want to retain my first name and remain connected. So to me, that's honestly my top priority, is to start to reunite the organization and drive us towards some common goals.
Yeah, there's just been so much change. I've been associated with EFR for going on 9 years now, and it's not just the growth and the new contract services that you have done with other cities, but we went through the pandemic together, and that is just going to take some time. Thank you for showing leadership during that time. That was really, really trying. Are there any new programs that EFR is going to implement in 2023?
Well, we have 2 exciting programs, and we're building on both of them. First, our core program, which is our mobile integrated health. Mm-hmm. We've just added and built out that team. I'm so extremely proud of the work that we are able to do in that realm. As a longtime first responder, I can certainly relate to going on calls, and you would see individuals repeatedly, and they're really falling through the cracks of services. And at the time, as a first responder, all you really had at your disposal was say, okay, I'm going to take you back to the emergency room. And it's just this really challenging cycle, and they never were connected to the resource that they really, truly needed. So now with our core program, they're able to make those connections. They go out to meet people where they are. They help provide and connect them to those resources. And a lot of them, that's all they need. Some they need that support for a bit longer. So that piece, I think, is really a big improvement in our ability to deliver services. And then the next area is building out emergency management. We now have a full-time emergency manager. We have an analyst and a wildfire mitigation specialist. There is a ton of work to do in that area. Having been, again, with the organization my entire career, that's really been a gap around emergency management. So I'm happy to see us fill that gap. I look forward to seeing where that division takes the organization into 23 and beyond.
Great. Well, you touched on a couple of things that were on my hit list. So let's go with number one. That integrated response system that you're talking about, I'm not sure that a lot of people in our community understood that you really just had one option. So explain a little bit more about how what we're doing now is so vastly different than what we did just a couple of years ago.
So prior to this program, when a crews would respond to an emergency or 911 call, they would go there, they would assess the patient, they would render aid. And in certain situations, the best path or option was to take them to the emergency room. But it might not have addressed some of the other challenges they were experiencing in their personal life. Now today, when the crews go out and provide that same level of service, in the reporting system they have the ability to just identify this person might be a good candidate for our mobile integrated health. And so there's a tab that they select. That's all confidential communication to our MIH team. And they see those referrals every morning, and they'll go out and schedule and make those connections. So it's the follow-up piece. And in a lot of cases, what is happening is that we reference people who call 911 quite a bit as high utilizers. It reduces those 911 calls, which in turn allows our emergency services to be in service for true 911 emergencies.
Yeah, I'm just amazed at this dramatic and appropriate shift, going from being responders and coming and doing your job to a person-first approach. What does this person need, and how do we help? And there's benefits for the individual, but also all the way down the system. So we're doing that also at the city, and I'm just so proud to be a partner with Issaquah on this. The other one you touched on is wildland fire risk management in Issaquah, and I did testify today on a climate action bill, and it's, as mayor, it's something that really concerns me because we live in a beautiful place and we're right at that urban interface. And so talk a bit about that. What is Eastside Fire and Rescue proposing, and your thoughts on it as chief?
Well, I think that the area that we live and work in, that's the attraction, is to be part of nature and embedded within that. But with that comes some of these inherent risks. So recently there was a big plan put together around wildfire mitigation. And it just so happens that Eastside Fire and Rescue, over half of our service area is in that wildland urban interface area. And it doesn't mean that we can't live within those communities. It really just means that, hey, there are some things that we need to have in our forefront of our thought process. One of the areas that we're going to be working is to establish and build programs and plans for communities to give them resources. It really starts with just education, because as an emergency service provider, we cannot be everywhere all the time. And our single biggest defense against wildfires is the ability for citizens within the community to take some of those proactive steps just right there at their home, being informed and educated on it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We have a citizen emergency response group as well in town, and the message is very key. Yes, we have some responders, but we also need to have individuals and homeowners be able to take some steps themselves, being prepared for an emergency, clearing brush away from their house, all of that. So that is great. I'm really looking forward to those programs in town. You did touch on emergency management. It's been really interesting the last couple of years because we've had quite a few emergencies, everything from the pandemic to flooding and power outages and extreme colds and extreme heat. So what are some of the things you would like our community to know about Eastside Fire and Rescue and emergency management and their participation in it as well?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is a newer program for the organization, and we're really kind of taking the same philosophy we've applied to fire and EMS services as a regional approach. So as far as what you can expect from Eastside Fire on the front is we're going to work to educate the community. We're going to make sure that we can reach out and work with our partner districts and cities with their respective emergency management divisions. There are areas where we've had gaps in communications, and there is no doubt, should an event or a disaster occur, it's going to take all hands on deck, and it's going to require us to work collaboratively and have, no challenges or communication across those, organizational or jurisdictional boundaries. So some of that is going to be training with our respective EM divisions, providing training to the community, and making sure that we're connected and we message things out appropriately, just so that people have, when they're informed, I feel like they're far more prepared than we're really kind of left in the dark or have uncertainty around a specific disaster topic.
Yeah, I think this education piece is huge. So I got to switch a little bit over back to the personal side. I've always been amazed at firefighting and police services in town, highly stressful jobs. You have provided me quite a bit of advice about, how to manage those jobs, but kind of share with the folks today, what do you do to handle the kind of career that you have chosen, which really is, thank you, an amazing sacrifice that you make for the rest of us, but how do you handle it? What do you do?
Well, there's something I've grown to appreciate, is that you really need to take care of yourself first before you can take care of others. And so just carving out time in the day to, whether it's physical fitness, mental wellness, just having that natural pause. But in the fire service specifically, and the men and women that are in the stations, they rely heavily on each other. It's really a team approach, and that's the concept. So they might go on a challenging call, they'll come back, they'll have dialogue and conversation, and try to just share that, unpack what they've experienced. And then it's making sure that we're looking out for each other, and then how that carries over into an individual's home life. I would tell you that that's one of my top priorities as the fire chief, is the health and wellness of the organization. And I think when we talk about health, we default to physical health, and firefighters are physically fit, and we know that that's what the expectation is, but there is an element around mental health and wellness. And so we are now becoming more comfortable with that. I would say that early on in my career, there was a stigma around showing weakness on that side. So I've grown to appreciate that, to show a little bit of vulnerability when you have those discussions and conversations. But I would not change any of it for the world. I feel like I have the best job ever. As the fire chief, my priority is still the same as when I was hired as a firefighter. It's to deliver top level service to the community. It's just right now that service is delivered through other people, and I'm way, way, way on the back end supporting to make sure that can happen.
That's great. So Chief, EFR, over your time there, has really evolved as an organization. You want to run us through these last couple of decades and tell us about all the changes?
Yeah. So I was hired by District 10 in 94, and then in 1999 was when Eastside Fire and Rescue was formed. I can tell you that prior to that, it was unique. We had situations where a District 10 unit would be passing an Issaquah unit. We'd be going in opposite directions.
And they were different colored vehicles.
And District 10 at the time was yellow. We always told people that the fire trucks weren't quite ripe then. I do like the tradition around red fire trucks, so I'm very happy today. But it took a while for us to come and develop this partnership. And so at the time, it was District 10 and the city of Issaquah. Eastside Fire and Rescue was formed in 99, which brought on District 10, District 38, the cities of Issaquah, Sammamish, and North Bend. And then we've evolved. We've expanded. We have a contract for services for the Snoqualmie tribe, and that's primarily to provide fire and EMS services to the casino building. And then most recently, we entered into a contract for fire and EMS service with the Woodinville Fire District. And then I also have the privilege of serving as the interim fire chief through a contract for leadership services for the city of Mercer Island.
Yeah, it's awesome. So many changes. It kind of spun my head. I did get to serve on your board for a little while and was just amazed at the growth. Well, thank you for that. That's a great story. So in all those years, Chief, there must be some stories that really resonated with you. Do you want to share any of those with us today?
Yeah, one that really sticks out for me was really early on in my career, and it was a tragic motor vehicle crash that resulted in a young gentleman, 18 years old, losing his life. And then the passenger in the vehicle was 16, and she survived. But after that, there's this part of me that said, is there something that we can do on the proactive side? And so working with our then public information officer and other stakeholders in the community, we reached out and we created what was called the Think Again program. And that program, it received recognition from Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It was funded by the Washington State Traffic Safety Council, and I had the privilege to travel the state to provide the instructional piece of that. And so what it really did is it placed first responders in a real intimate setting in a high school classroom, and to talk about, it wasn't about saying don't do this or don't do that. It was really around there's consequences to decisions. And so it was the concept of think again. And for me, it gave me kind of this outlet of this piece that really impacted me in my professional life, and trying to take something and say, hey, can we prevent that? And so, and that's just not unique to Ben Lane as a firefighter. That's how a lot of things in the fire service are. Responders want to provide a high level of service. They want to prevent things. And it's been something that I've been proud of, and I've been able to pass the torch. I've mentioned I've been here a while, and in fact, I've bumped into people over the course of my career who are now firefighters, and they're like, I saw you in my high school class. So, yeah, that piece, although I certainly wish you could go back and that night didn't occur, but taking that experience and channeling it into something really positive has been a great outlet for me.
Oh, that's amazing. My kids were probably in one of those classrooms at one point in time. Thank you for sharing that. One thing I just thought maybe you could share is a story. We're talking about mental health and taking care of ourselves. It was so nice of you to invite me to visit the stations as soon as I could during the pandemic, in order for me just to do a check-in and see everybody. And, it warmed my heart, but also made me sad that, being in that service at that time was a lot harder on our first responders than people realize. The sacrifices of, prior to vaccines, maybe not being able to sleep in your house until we knew that, firefighters weren't going to be bringing this home, and all kinds of different challenges. So thank you so much for that focus on mental health. I see the impacts of it in the station visit. So what is one thing that our viewers and maybe even your coworkers don't know about you that you would like to share with us today? One thing that people don't know about. It's hard to have something that people don't know about you when you literally grow up in front of them. I'm on year 28. So as far as what those who've worked with me in my work life, just very little bit that people would not know. The community, I think it's always important to, just acknowledge I'm a father, I'm a husband, been married for 26 years. I have two boys. Congratulations.
Thank you. They're 21 and 23. I have a lot of fun with them outside of here. I enjoy being active. You might find it interesting that your fire chief likes to ride motocross. Those that work with me know that I've had a few setbacks over my career. And I like to just be active and try to, live life to its fullest and challenge myself and those around me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You love doing that physical activity. You have been a good mentor to me in reminding me that even if I just did it for 15 minutes a day, that's a good day. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming and spending time with us today. It's really great for our community to get to know their fire chief. And just so you know, I have a hard time calling you chief because you've always been Ben, but you are our chief, and we're just really glad to have you.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks for being here today on Uniquely Issaquah.